Well, I have to admit that when first considered buying a team, I thought about a lot of things, but I never thought about a day when I'd have to say goodbye to a partner and a friend and someone who's so close to our organization and me. So this is a first, and there's no script for this. So Raymond, no, in all seriousness, first of all, I want to thank Bob for 12 years of your life and your family's life. It's been an incredible run. As we all know, we've had historic success, not only as a business, but obviously on the basketball court, and you're a tremendous part of it, a huge part of it. And 4 championships, 6 finals in 12 years. I don't know if you ever never do this again. I think you will in some capacity, but thank you, too competitive. But if you ever do this again, it'd be hard to keep that record going. It's just an incredible accomplishment. And I just want to say on a personal level, I have 4 kids, and I've said this before, I actually consider Bob my 5th. It's really hard to see your son, because that's what I kind of feel like this is. Leave and go off to do something else. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I understand it, because I don't. It's not inside. It's not in me to do that. I'm so competitive, and I know he is too. It's a really hard thing for me to understand why, but it's really not for me to understand why. I just want him to be happy. And I will say there's some similarity, and Bob and I have talked about this. I was a little older than you, but I'd been at the venture capital firm, a very good firm, for 25 years. And some people would say one of the greatest jobs in the world. Why would you ever leave to do anything else? We had amazing success. And I couldn't really explain that to people other than to say that it's just there was something else I wanted to do. In my case, I knew what it was. Maybe Bob does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I dropped it all, told my partners I was leaving. It was a very hard thing to do, to go try something different and something new. And maybe that's what's in your future. I can't say, I don't know. But I wish him the best of luck. And I know he'll be successful at whatever he does. He will not sit for long. I don't think it's in his nature. He has been an incredible partner over the period. Not only the success we've had, but what you guys don't see, what you don't know, is the amount of stress, the amount of pain, the amount of tension, there's just so many things that happen if you're all together, and as we have been, and trying to build something which, from where we were to where we are now, I think we can take great pride, and you can take great pride in. And I can think back just so when I think about Bob, I think about a couple of things. One, I think about the first day I met him. He was suggested to me by Danny Ainge, who gets a call out here today. I was looking for a GM and interviewed a bunch of people that the league recommended. And just nobody was clicking exactly right. And Danny called me one day, who I knew from my Boston days, and said, there's this guy, Bob Myers. He's young. He hasn't ever done any of this before. He's described who he was. I said, well, he doesn't sound like he's qualified. And that's the truth. And I said, well, you ought to just meet him. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to interview a bunch of other people, but I'll meet him. And it was back in January of 2000, maybe 11. We had just taken over the team, and thinking January we met. Came out, we met. I said, I really, really liked him. I said, this guy, characteristically, capability wise, I think he could be really good at this, but wasn't necessarily the resume. Interviewed a bunch of people for a few more months, and ultimately I said to myself and Peter, and said, I don't really like any of these other candidates. I really like this guy, Bob Myers. And, we called him back, and the rest is history. It's a pretty amazing story. So that's one thing I think about. Another thing I think about, which was an incredible thing, is when we were doing the Andre Iguodala acquisition, it was so hard because we had, as I recall, and I don't remember all the details now, we had to shed a bunch of money, and it was hard to be able to bring him on. And I remember I was on vacation, or I call it vacation, but up in Montana, and I was on with Bob all the time. Like, day, all night, just constantly. How are we going to get this done? He worked so hard to get that deal. A lot of people could never understand how difficult that was. It didn't seem like a lot, right? But just to get that guy turned out to be a very important person in the history of this franchise and the success we've had. So he's an incredibly diligent, hard worker, which I will always remember and respect. I mean, just insanely so. So I remember that. The next one I remember, the great moment, was Kevin Durant. You know, we lost that horrible series in 2016, up 3-1. It's hard to even think about it or talk about it, to be honest with you. And I won't say a lot other than Bob Myers was on the job pretty fast. And, it all worked out. It would not have happened. We would not have had those next 2 championships if Bob hadn't done what he did and working incredibly difficult. He was the key guy. It was his idea and his execution. And yes, a lot of other people had a lot to do with it in the organization. It's always a we thing, but it wouldn't have happened without Bob. And so we owe him that. That was something I think about as well. And I guess I also think about, the 2019 more heartbreak. How difficult that was to see 2 of our greatest players in consecutive games go down, and how Bob dealt with that and the humanity with which he approached it. It's just incredible. I can't even describe to you or try to put it into words, but it's just so vivid for me, in terms of remembering it. So, and I could go on and on and on, the things that weren't done, the trades that weren't done, which were incredible amount of time and diligence and effort and so on. I just think we have a great organization, and it was Bob was a central part of it over the last 12 years. We're going to miss him incredibly, and I wish him all the success in the world, and whatever he decides to do. And who knows, maybe he'll be back with us at some point in the future. I'm not going to give up that easily. He may think so, but I'm not. I've always said that success is, you have to have talent, but you have to have the management involved in these organizations on the business side, on the basketball side. Management makes a huge difference. And none of you can understand that as much as when you're doing this and involved in it. And Bob has just been as good as it gets or ever will be. So thank you for all those efforts. I'll just quickly address.
This is more compliments than I ever got in my time.
Yeah, well, got to keep you working on the next thing, Bob. What's next? Bob addressed it, and I think he addressed it well, and I'm sure you'll ask a couple of questions, but look, we have a great organization. We believe in bench strength. Some may think we don't, based on they criticized our bench on the court sometimes, but we do believe in bench strength, and within this organization, we have a lot of bench strength, and we have a lot of people that are really good at their jobs, and that we're constantly training for situations like this. You can't always achieve it, but Bob has trained some great people in his organization, and I think they'll play a great role going forward. I'm not going to say what we're doing yet because I don't know what we're doing yet. I only learned of this decision this morning. And while we've been thinking about the possibility of it happening, certainly knew it was a possibility, although I didn't want to admit that was really a possibility to myself. It was a possibility. And so we've thought about it, but it's not going to be something that we rush into. We'll get it done when we get it done. We'll make the right decision for the organization and hopefully move forward. I think we're preparing for the draft, free agency, all those things. And I know I'm going to work him to every last day till June 30th to be involved here, whether he knows it or not.
Yeah. Oh.
So he'll be here for that. And
I didn't know. That's fine. Yeah.
That's the way it's going to be. So I think we'll be prepared, and we'll go forward, and it'll be good. Anything else you want to say before I can take some questions too? But
no, I that means you drive a hard bargain. So it was nice to hear those things. I do share those sentiments, and I guess I skipped over a lot of the things I'm proud of. There's a lot of things to be proud of. It's a hard job. It's hard to win. somebody's going to win a championship in 2 weeks. It's not us, but we know what it feels like to win the championship and lose one. So proud. Well, I should have hit on that, but I'm proud of what I did and I'm proud of what we did. But thank you for those things. It was really nice.
All right. Some questions. I'd be glad to take any questions.
You mentioned that management can make a world of difference. How do you think Bob's decision of leaving might impact, other guys making decisions, including Steve, who only has 1 year left on his contract?
They're coming right for you. Right now.
It's okay. Look, I think Bob we've all, one thing that's great about this organization and all organizations that achieve greatness is that they have great continuity. You look at Miami, who's in the finals last night, great continuity over many years. Same thing with this organization. We have 3 players that have been here other than Udonis Haslem. I think the 3 longest tenured players in the league. Bob, 12 years, maybe the longest tenured GM ever in the Warriors. Is that true, Raymond? Yeah, we're tied. Steve Kerr's been here 9 years. We're all about continuity. We've been working together a long time. I mean, we kind of know how each of us think. I think it's going to be hard to adjust to know Bob, but we'll figure out a way to do it. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. The new CBA has a lot of restrictive rules that may not be directly aimed at you guys, but will impact you guys pretty heavily. How do you view that changing or not changing your future plans on roster?
I'm not going to comment on the roster very much because the truth is we have a lot of work to do, obviously, and we have time. We have until the draft and free agency, which is a month away or so. So we're going to win no matter what. I don't care what the rules are. We are going to figure out a way to do it. That's what good organizations do. They figure out a way to win the game. And our game is to win games and to win championships. And when we came here, this ownership group 13 years ago, we made a ridiculous proclamation about winning within 5 years. And of course, somehow we managed to do it, all of us, players and everybody involved. And we've continued to win. And look, the rules will change in the game, but we'll continue to do that. We're going to work really hard to do it. And I think we have really smart people and we'll do it.
As you consider a new GM and the culture fit and all those types of things, what should the new person know about your involvement with the team day to day, your enthusiasm for basketball, and what it's like to work with you?
I guess they can go talk to Bob and see what that's like. I think there are a lot of misconceptions. I'm involved as an owner, and Peter's involved, but I think you should be involved if you want to be successful. I think this idea that somehow you should stay out of the way is ridiculous. No good business runs that way. Whoever's in charge is involved and they know what's going on. Now, you hire great people like this guy and you let them make the calls and you don't get in their way. You let them do their job. So that's a basic tenet of what we do. But as long as I'm involved in ownership, I'm going to be involved in the organization. Sometimes there are ultimate calls that have to be made, and the buck stops here, as they say. So you have to do that. But I haven't really had to do that very much because I've had great people like Bob Myers and Brandon Schneider and Rick Welts before that, and Steve Kerr, and these guys know what they're doing, and they're great. They've been great at their jobs.
Joe, you just talked about continuity, but this is going to be the first draft that you've had under your tenure where you don't have a long-term GM in place. How do you approach the draft under those circumstances, and when do you think that you're going to make a decision on who is going to replace him?
I'm not going to box myself in here, to be honest and open about this. We really just learned about this when you learned about it this morning. I was always hopeful that Bob would continue on, that somehow he was joking, but he wasn't. So, obviously have thought about it. We've got some ideas. We'll make a decision as soon as we can, but I want to make sure that we make the right decision. And, you know, if it happens in a week, great. If it happens in a month, great. We'll make that decision through a natural course, have the right process. I think we're preparing for the draft and free agency and all those things regardless, and we'll be ready.